I asked an AI model to build me a full 2028 presidential election map, all 50 states, and what came back tells you something much bigger than just who wins. It tells you where this country is actually headed over the next decade. Start with the bedrock states, the ones locked in from day one. Newsom's solid column is enormous. Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii, New Mexico, Colorado, Illinois, New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, and D.C. That's 208 electoral votes before a single competitive state gets filled in, built on strong urban turnout, durable party infrastructure, and demographic trends that aren't reversing anytime soon. Vance's solid column, by comparison, is Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, both Dakotas, almost all of Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, South Carolina, and Alaska, deep red and reliable, but it only adds up to Den 04. That's already a massive structural gap, more than 100-vote head start for Democrats before the map even gets interesting. The likely states extend that gap further for Newsom. Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Maine all lean Democratic thanks to consistent federal-level performance, pushing him up to 227. On Vance's side, Texas, Florida, Indiana, and Missouri round out his likely column, states that aren't as automatic as they once were, but still comfortably Republican, bringing him to 195. Now here's where the bigger picture really starts to take shape. Because the lean states show two very different coalitions responding to two very different pressures. Nevada, one of the most turnout-driven states in the country, comes down almost entirely to Clark County and the Las Vegas metro. Republicans have been making real gains with working-class and Hispanic voters there, tightening the race considerably. But in this projection, Democrats' ground game still holds, and Newsom takes it narrowly. Michigan tells a similar story from a different angle. Detroit remains a massive Democratic base, and the suburbs surrounding it, once genuine Republican territory, have shifted hard toward Democrats over the last several cycles. Rural and working-class voters elsewhere in the state have moved right, but not by enough to offset the suburban gains, and Michigan stays blue, though closer than it used to be. Pennsylvania might be the most balanced case of all. Philadelphia and its suburbs delivering real strength among college-educated voters, rural counties pushing hard the other direction, and the whole state coming down to whether Democrats can build enough margin in the population centers to offset everywhere else. In a tougher national environment for Republicans, they just barely can, and Newsom edges it out. Vance's lean states show the flip side of the same national trend. Ohio, once one of the biggest swing states in the country, has settled into a clear Republican lean, rural dominance across the state, simply outweighing Democratic strength in Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. Iowa followed an almost identical path, only faster, moving hard toward Republicans in rural counties, while Democratic strongholds in Des Moines and Iowa City don't have the population to compensate. With all the lean states filled in, Newsom sits at 267 electoral votes, just 3 shy of the presidency. Vance is at 218. That leaves the true battlegrounds, the 4 states where this entire election actually gets decided, and this is where the bigger national story really comes into focus. Wisconsin is almost perfectly split, Milwaukee and Madison anchoring Democrats, rural Wisconsin anchoring Republicans, and a handful of swing counties in the middle deciding everything. It's a state that reacts fast to the national mood, and when voters feel like the country's headed the wrong direction economically, Wisconsin tends to move with that feeling. In this projection, it does, tipping narrowly blue. Arizona might be the single clearest example of the broader shift happening across the entire map. A decade ago, it wasn't considered a top-tier battleground at all. Now Maricopa County has become the center of the state's political identity, with college-educated voters, independents, and suburban households drifting away from Republicans, especially when the national GOP brand gets tied to divisive issues like tariffs and foreign conflicts. Rural Arizona still holds for Republicans, but the suburbs are increasingly out of reach, and in this projection, Arizona very nearly goes Democratic. Georgia follows the same pattern, almost entirely because of Atlanta. Population growth, suburban realignment, and a younger, more diverse electorate have reshaped the state from the metro out, even as rural Georgia stays reliably Republican. In a high turnout presidential year, that suburban surge outweighs everything else, and Georgia stays Democratic by the narrowest of margins. And finally, North Carolina, the state Democrats have chased for years without quite closing the deal. The research triangle keeps growing. Charlotte keeps trending left. Suburban counties keep drifting away from the GOP. But Republicans have always found just enough rural turnout to hold on. Not this time. In this projection, North Carolina finally flips blue, the last piece of the puzzle falling into place. Zoom all the way back out, and here's the real takeaway. This isn't a map about one candidate beating another candidate. It's a map about which coalition scales. Democrats' foundation is built on cities and suburbs that are still growing. In Atlanta, in Phoenix, in the Philadelphia suburbs, in Detroit's outer ring. Republicans' foundation is built on rural turnout that's already about as maximized as it can get. When a national environment tilts even slightly away from the incumbent party, and this projection has that happening, growth-based coalitions have more room to expand, while turnout-maxed coalitions have very little room left to give. That's why a projection built around narrow county-by-county margins in just 6 states, Nevada, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina, still produces a comfortable-looking 320 to 218 final score. The margins underneath are razor-thin. A 1-point shift in turnout, a different economic backdrop, a stronger or weaker suburban operation, any of that could flip several of these states back the other way. But structurally, the bigger picture this map paints is pretty clear. The battlegrounds of 2028 aren't really about persuading voters who might switch sides anymore. They're about which party's demographic engine is still running and which one is starting to run out of road. It's also worth stepping back and asking what this specific matchup says about each party's own internal calculations. Democrats chose the safer, more electable option in Newsom over a more energizing but riskier candidate in AOC. And this map rewards that choice with a genuinely comfortable win. Republicans, meanwhile, are still sorting out whether Vance or Rubio gives them the better shot. And the fact that Rubio is closing ground suggests plenty of Republican voters aren't fully sold on Vance as the strongest possible nominee either. Put those two dynamics together and you get a pretty clear picture of where each party's real vulnerability lives heading into the next cycle. For Republicans, it's a coalition that's running low on room to grow. For Democrats, it's the temptation to nominate someone more exciting than electable next time around. The exact trade-off that, based on projections like this one, would turn a comfortable win into a genuine toss-up.